welcome back. So I'm going to continue writing. First John 2. That's the last one. First John 2. 26. Okay. So I really didn't anticipate this to be a long teaching. Did not plan that. This is a pretty straightforward teaching. You know, that they aren't, your eyes will not see your teachers. But it's not saying about your teacher. It'll cause you to err. It'll cause you to go make mistakes. It'll cause you to sin, essentially. Your eyes will see those who cause you to sin. Mistakes to go in the wrong way. So 1 John 2:26 is the last reference here for false teachers. I'm sure there's other ones, but these are the ones. My children, I'm writing to you to keep you from sinning. These false teachers will lead you to sin, or your eyes will see those who lead you to sin. If anyone should sin, we have one who can plead for us with the Father, Yeshua HaMashiach, the righteous. He is the atoning sacrifice for our sins, not for ours only, but for those of the whole world besides. And by this we know that we have learned to know him, by laying his commands to heart. By this we know we love him too, if you obey him. The man who says, I know Yeshua, but does not lay his commands to heart, is a liar, and the truth has no place in him. And I'm going to say as well that whoever says they're a teacher of Yeshua, and they're a true teacher, but doesn't do the commands, they're false teachers. These are the ones causing people to err. The atoning sacrifice for our sins, and not for ours only, but for those of the whole world besides. And by this we know that we have learned to know him, by laying his commands to heart. By this we know we love him too, if you obey him. The man who says, I know Yeshua, but does not lay his commands to heart, is a liar, and the truth has no place in him. And I'm going to say as well that whoever says they're a teacher of Yeshua, and they're a true teacher, but doesn't do the commands, they're false people, if you obey him. The man who says, I know Yeshua, but does not lay his commands to heart, is a liar, and the truth has no place in him. And I'm going to say as well that whoever says they're a teacher of Yeshua, and they're a true teacher, but doesn't do the commands, they're false teachers. These are the ones causing people to err. The truth has no place in them, but whenever a man lays his message to heart, and that in that man the love of Elohim has indeed reached its perfection. By this we know that we are in union with Elohim. He who professes to maintain union with Elohim is himself bound to live as Mashiach lived. He who professes to maintain union with Elohim is himself bound to live as Mashiach lived. And that's a question. That's a really good question too. Is we have to live like the anointed one, the Mashiach, they say in Hebrew. We have to live as he lived, and that's not easy if we can't see him,
Because traditionally, if you are a disciple of somebody, you imitate the way they look, the way they speak, the way they walk. You imitate them through and through, not just physically, but spiritually as well. So if I am an individual who does not forgive those who deserve mercy, I'm not a follower of Mashiach. But if I have one who sees somebody who, I think the biggest thing, biggest difference with us and the Mashiach, I'll just say the anointed one, because I'm not Hebrew, but I try to to do that. It's not easy. The biggest difference with us, those who claim to be followers of the anointed one, Joshua, and Joshua, the anointed one himself, the Son of God, Son of Elohim, is he knows our hearts. He is, yeah, he reads our hearts. He tries our hearts. He knows what's inside of man, the deepest motivations. We don't know what's inside man. We, we don't even know what's inside ourselves most of the time. We like to think we do. I like to think I know what I'm made of, but to be honest, I only know the carnal part. I don't know. I think it's a big mystery is that we like to say we know ourselves, but only Elohim really knows who I am and what I'm capable of in a good way, or I don't even know what I'm capable of in a good way. I like to think I'm a good person, but I don't even know the full potential of myself in a spiritual capacity and in a good, a righteous in the capacity for righteous works and Sadiq, they say in Hebrew. I don't know because I don't know what opportunities will be presented. But that's why it says we always have to be ready to do good. And it's like we're looking for those opportunities, not that we're meddling in people's affairs and saying, "Oh, can I? I noticed you need this, so let me just give this to you." We're not. We don't want to be a burden to people and be so nosy, but maybe we can be a little more proactive. And it says to esteem each other better than yourself. So if we know there's a need, maybe we'll pray. We'll let them know we're praying, or just do it in whatever limited capacity we can. Especially in the way things are today, we are so divided physically, geographically, and it's hard for us to connect on a real level, face to face, unless you really make the effort, unless the love is really there, or unless the resources are there. It's not just love; it's resources. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's not easy. It's not easy. We try to be his followers, and we really don't know how people. I mean, I think things start with just the physical. It's so basic, it's so simplistic, but it's very true. There's a lot on our appearance, and I'm not saying we have to dress up and we all have to dress up in Gucci or whatever, silk, beautiful clothing, or suits all the time, or dress like this. Uh, I think essentially, when you break it down, we need to present ourselves as modest. We aren't causing people to sin by our appearance. And when I say sin, I mean adulterous thoughts, like sexual thoughts, that someone will look at me the way I'm dressed or the way you are dressed, and they'll think, oh, I want to sleep with this person because they're showing a lot of their fill in the blank, or they're behaving in a way, even if they're modestly dressed, they're behaving in a way that you're tempting them to think impure thoughts, sexual thoughts that they shouldn't, because they're either married or you are married, or maybe it's okay for them to think that, and you're both single, but still there's a time and a place for flirtation. But we don't want to do that in public. I don't think public is the right way to do that. I think there's some propriety there that is lacking in our day and age, where a man and a woman, when they're flirting and they're getting to know each other, that really should be done in a classy way, in a respectful way. And you see people with PDAs all over the place, hugging and kissing. I'm not saying hugging is bad, but especially people making out in public, that is just, there's just no decency. I'm going to call people out, from this day forward. I'm going to say, excuse me, don't do that here. Why do you have to do that here? Go get a room. That's what they used to say. And it's true. Get a room. What are you doing? Why are you doing this in public? It's not that it's disgusting, but it's not respectful. You're not respecting yourselves, number one, because you're putting on display like you're a show, and you're not respecting others around you because you're not respecting their eyes. You're not respecting us as people, that you could just do that, and this is like it's a big show. You know, people don't do that in front of children. I mean, depends on the context. There's right places to show affection. Maybe in front of children, you can show a little bit to a degree, but there are boundaries where it's a little too far. People know what that is. I'd say it's anything below the neck, in my opinion. When it comes to children, if children are around, especially if maybe even children who are not related to you, you shouldn't be doing it at all. But yeah, people need to be more respectful of public behavior. And so I was talking about, how did Joshua, the anointed one, how did our Savior, how did the Son of Elohim, of God, how did the Son of God dress? And I'm thinking probably the way I'm dressed. I'm not saying he wore a kimono and Asian, like a whatever this is, like a Buddhist monk kind of thing, and then like this kind of stuff. We really don't know, but you can bet. Oh, turn that off. So I think we can make a wager. I'm not saying we should gamble, but I think it's a safe guess, estimate, that he probably dressed in loose clothing. And if anything, if there's anything we can take or observe and learn from other cultures, particularly those in the Middle East, is that they've retained a lot of their modesty and fashion sensibility over millennia. It has not changed too drastically. You can look at art, you can look at archaeological evidence, you can look at historical writings, and come to the conclusion, or at least come to educated opinion, an informed opinion that, yeah, they dress like this. Didn't change too much. That's a good thing. It means we have a sense of how the ancient Israelites appeared, more like the Bedouin shepherds in Yemen. There are even photographic evidence of Yehudim who are dressed like this. Again, this kind of fashion, this kind of culture existed, was predates Muhammad, and Islam predates it. That means most likely is the way Abraham appeared as well, and all the forefathers in the faith. Um, you'd know somebody's status in society by the material they would wear, the amount of jewelry on them, gold, silver, precious gems, and all that, precious stones, and their entourage, and things like daggers and what have you. So I think it's important. It's an important first step, just appearing modest. So I've been very, very self conscious of how I dress in public now. Whereas before, I would be more open to wearing shorts in public and tank tops. I will no longer do that. There is no context, whether it's at the beach or anything, to dress that way. The only place and time I do that is in front of my future wife, is to dress in a seductive way, but not in public, not for anyone else. Um, I don't want to be a stumbling block for anybody to think not just sexual thoughts about me, but to bring shame on the name and the reputation of the creator that I claim to be a follower of Joshua the anointed one and of the Father Elohim, of God, that I worship them. And for me to dress inappropriately, to speak inappropriately, to think inappropriately is not in good it's not in good faith. It's just not it's not it's irresponsible, and I'm breaking the third commandment. You will not make the name, the reputation, take the name of Yah, your Elohim, in vain and turn to nothing, whether it is on the surface where you're just using the name in a disrespectful way, or the deeper sense is where, again, you're not conducting yourself, or any these things you say or do is not representative. And we have that warning many times that the opinions and da 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 is not representative of this company. That's essentially what you'd be doing, is your opinions, your words, whatever that you're expressing is not in line with what Yah Elohim and Joshua the Anointed One, because their will is the same. So I'll just say with Yah's will, if it's not congruent, it doesn't match up to the best, uh, to that high standard, then you break that commandment. And that's probably one of the easiest ones to break, is when we're not in line with their will because of a weakness or just rebellion or ignorance or what have you. So, I mean, it's interesting how these messages come out of nowhere just from trying to listen to what I've presented last year. But yeah, it's important that we we dress in a way that we're not uh, causing anyone to sin, whether, again, they're thinking the wrong things about us, or if they're thinking wrong things in their heart that they want to do, which are inappropriate because they're married, or it's just, you're tempting them to fornicate or whatever it is, right? Or maybe they'll pick up on an attitude, they'll be disobedient to their parents, or they'll be disrespectful to their elders, or disrespectful to just anybody, period, to authority. And, we don't want to have negative vibes or attitudes that will be infecting other people. Often we look at the Feast of Unleavened Bread and we say, take out sin from our lives, but what are we doing to take sin out of our society, out of our community? We don't think about that. We just think about ourselves like, okay, I swear, I curse, I use profanity, I'll just stop doing that because I'm taking sin out of my life. But we don't think about, you know, this person, my neighbor who um, is doing something is not correct, and it's because I'm not helping it either. So I have to do my part and not be a contributor to that behavior. And if I correct it, it would lead them to fixing uh, their own flaw. If that makes sense. So we have to think about that as well. So I think that's all I have to say about that one. I'm just going to continue to listen to this message then and continue writing it.
Whenever a man lays his message to heart, and that man loves that has indeed reached its perfection. By this we know that we are in union with Elohim. He who professes to maintain union with Elohim is himself bound to live as Mashiach lived. Just saying, love your brother. Do not love the world, love your brothers. And maintain your relationship, your union with Mashiach. Maintain your relationship with Elohim. We must love Elohim, we must love each other. So those preachers, I'm not going to name names. There are many mainstream preachers that claim to be serving God, serving Jesus Christ, a disciple of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua. But they will not obey the commandments. They will not keep the true Sabbath day, or if they do, they don't rest on it. They don't keep the festivals in Leviticus 23, or the sabbatical years, the Jubilee year, the new moons. Everyone, I understand people learn at different levels, so you can't condemn all those people who don't do all those things, but there's at least the basic of the Ten Commandments. If they're not doing the Ten Commandments, you already know. That's a huge litmus test. And then those who don't know about the feast, I'm not going to condemn them. But if they do know about the feast and they're not doing that, then that's their condemnation. That's their judgment against them. I know some people have commented on my videos saying there was a comment about we should do more to actually help in our communities and preach to the poor, to those who are homeless, those who are in prison, things like that. And I I wholeheartedly agree with that comment, because it's one thing to just preach where you are in your congregation or just amongst the congregation, but it would be much more profitable for everybody and be more pleasing to our Father if we would organize groups to not just congregate at a house or a designated place, but you go out into the world and you preach, especially to those who are afflicted, especially those who are homeless, especially those who are in prison, those who are immigrants. And I mean not just all immigrants. I mean those who are new to the country and they don't have their feet under themselves. They're strangers in a strange land, and they have no social support. They're truly needing help. And say, for instance, you have a Christian was persecuted in a Middle Eastern country. They came over to America, and they don't know what to do. Like, they have no family here, and you go, maybe you find this person, Yah leads you to them, and you can preach to them, teach them, this is the way to live. And whether they hear or not, I mean, that's up to them, but at least you tried. At least you preached to those groups who are kind of the outcasts of society, the widows, like the true widows, not those who are not really widows. I mean, there's a true widow and one that is not as much of a widow because they have a good support system and they work and all those things. And then there are orphans as well. I mean, it's hard to find orphans nowadays because there's no such thing as orphanages in America anymore. But those are fatherless, those who don't have mother, maybe spiritual orphans, you could say, maybe even that, spiritual widows, those who don't have a husband, and have to go at it alone, raising their kids or whatever it is. So maybe single mothers, that could be like a widow. I don't know, but I think it's very important that they don't just, as much as I'm just sitting down teaching. I mean, yeah, there's a quarantine, but even before then, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it's on my heart to go downtown, talk to the homeless, give them a voice, listen to their story, and I need to make more of a concerted effort, not just listen to them and give them things they need, but to preach to them and say, do you know Yeshua? Do you know why you were born? Can I tell you what Elohim has planned? Jehovah's planned for us, the ultimate plan that Jesus Christ came to speak, because they don't know these names. I'm just going to say, okay, God has a plan. And I tell you his great plan for your life. It's the ultimate plan. It's not just for us right now. It's for everyone in the future. That we'll all be like him. We're going to live forever. And no one will be, there's not going to be an eternal hellfire. People are going to be tortured forever and ever. It's a hopeful future. Everyone will get to know the truth. And those who don't want to go that way, well, then, they can have their choice to just not exist anymore. But those who want to continue living forever in a family environment and to know God and to really have true happiness and blessings to eternity and that never ends, then yeah, you'll get a choice to enjoy the things that God has invented. Music. People love music. People love food. People love family and togetherness and being with loved ones. I mean, those are things I think God really instinctively put in us to gravitate towards, and it's a good thing for people to preach to those groups, to give them hope, and not just to do preaching, but to actually give them a way to I mean, they say that what's better to give a man a fish for a day or to teach him how to fish. So if we can help them teach them how to fish, there's a way to do that. I haven't really sat down and brainstormed about it, but there's a way we can do that. Not just simply give them bread for one day, but help them to self-sufficient. Or not self-sufficient, like not depending on God, but you know what I mean, like being able to be more resourceful and to have a skill that can help them help others as well. So as much as we teach them to be more wise in their financial management, for example, managing their finances, they could also then teach other people to be wise, manage their finances. They can also spread the gospel. If there's a principle, excuse me, in the Bible, like it says that don't be lenders. We shall not be lenders. It's a sin to borrow money. So if they teach other people, I was taught and I understand now I shouldn't be borrowing people's money and owing interest, and I should just pay my debts. That's why I've been focused to get rid of my debt, and now I have no debt. And I'm teaching you the same thing, and that's just one small principle. But if they can internalize that,
Actually, it's not a sin to borrow money. It's just not good to owe someone money. So if you have to borrow, then yeah, you have to borrow. Um, but it's better not to have to do that. So just do not be a lender. I don't know, but anyway, there's a lot to say about
and
that.
that becomes part of their philosophy and their way of life. It's just a small thing. It's not even a big part of the Torah, but that is a small uh, piece of it that could help other people too, just by them teaching it. So, as much as there's false teachers teaching false things, there's also false practitioners practicing false things too. Our eyes will see those who lead us to err, both in teaching and both in doing. So, faith without work is dead, and likewise works without faith is also dead. So you need both. And it's important to exercise love, have an attitude of love, to have love in your mind, in terms of towards Elohim and your brother and sister and everyone around you. So right now it's a hard time to really practice this in terms of with other people because we're pretty isolated. So we try to use technology and Skype and all that, and that's one way we can go about it and encourage each other and check on each other and use whatever limited means we have at this moment. And this is only temporary. There'll come a time where we can't come out of our houses, but it'll still be another danger. But at least we can continue to congregate in the future. I'm sure that'll happen because this virus, this plague will not stay forever. It's only until the next thing, which is most likely going to be the famine and the world war. So that's all I have to say about that. So I just pray a blessing on you, on the listeners, that they will take this message, accept the words of Yehovah, accept the Holy Scriptures, and just to what it really says in regards to this chapter in Isaiah. This verse about your eyes will see your teachers. Actually, your eyes will see those who cause you to err. So a blessing on you and your family. May Jehovah protect you and bless you. Set his holy angels over you to protect you from the dark spiritual forces and all harm, according to his will. and to make your way prosperous, and to keep you in his covenant, so that you may not depart from it, but you will give glory to him, and he will be glorified in you. And may we always stand with courage and bravery forever for the name of Jehovah, protecting the reputation of Jehovah, and not making his name into nothing, but bringing more glory to it, magnifying his name, magnifying his word by our words, by our actions, by our thoughts, and not to be hypocrites, because it's so easy for me to preach, but then to do another thing altogether. So let me be, and let us all be doers of what we teach, and not just hearers. In the name of Yeshua, Mashiach, in the name of Yod He Vav He, I pray according to what he wants, not according to what I want. Amen. See, almost an hour. Okay, great.
Okay.
Person, that's not what it's saying at all. Besides,
All right. So, in regards to, I was able to finish that, so I'm thankful. I was able to listen to that all. I still have day and again Thursday and Friday, so 3 days to really put this together. Aiming for 15 minutes, and basically, so I'm just trying to come up with 3 points right now based on this one topic. So again, the topic is yeah, 30 verses 20 to 21, and essentially we're looking at the scripture where it says, "Your eyes will see your teachers." That's the prophecy people used to say um, that I'm in the future that people will be taught the truth. Um, but it doesn't say that in the Septuagint. It says, "They that cause you to err shall no more draw near to you. Your eyes shall see those." Okay, let me just rewind. "Those that cause you to sin shall no more go to you. They'll be far from you. They won't be able to reach you, have access to you. Your eyes will see those that are causing you." So you will have that ability to perceive, to identify these false teachers. That's what it is. These false brethren, whether it's teachers or brethren. So it's saying the exact opposite. Um, so I'm going to say this can. I'm going to put here. This can include both false teachers, as the Masoretic is saying, and false brethren. Brethren. And then I want to say, let's look at the verse to see does it fit. This verse in both as and sept. See if it makes sense. If it makes sense that there is a time in the future where we will see our teachers. When I say teachers, I mean um, teachers that are teaching the truth. Spirit beings, so people in Church of God, they teach that in the millennium to come, the millennium of God, I guess they call it the millennium period. That's what they preach. Will be kings and priests. Will be like him, and will be teaching people the truth and the way they should go. So that they use the scripture to say that this is talking about the millennium. So is this talking about the millennium, or is it talking about, or maybe it is, but maybe it's talking about another aspect where, in the millennium, these false teachers will be rooted out. So maybe it's talking about that. So is it a time in the future, the millennium, where we'll see our teachers who are teaching the truth? Say teachers or spirit beings, spirit, or big war is this um, talking something else? That's the first question must be asked. That must be, must be asked. So if you look at the context, so I'm gonna say, yeah. So let's present it. And also look at the context. Context. Okay, so context is key. So, I'll just put here context is key. And it is what I did is I looked at all these scriptures about false teachers. And I do that because your eyes shall see. Those who cause you to err. Those who cause you to err are people who teach you the wrong things, bad influences, whatever it is. It's might not even be brethren or teachers. It could be society. It could be that. You know what? It could be that. It might even be bad influences in the world, in society, community, in planet, period. It could just be anyone who, who lies, propagate lies, and sinful attitudes and or behavior. So it could be that. It could be that very much. Um, that's hypothetical, but you know what? Could be that. So we have to look at the context. That's key. So that's the number one point. And the next point is um, is this prophecy? I guess you could say, is this prophecy? Has it been fulfilled? The question to ask. Why or why not? Yes. And how or no? And when? And when will it be? That's the second question. Because it number one is context. So I'll say number one, context. Just put it in numerical order. Context. Context. That's the first question I'm asking. Number two question is prophecy. Pathetic. The last thing is practicality. How is this practical? How do we practicality, practical application? How do we apply this? How can this be applied now and in the future? So I'll look at it really quick. How to identify scriptures again. We're looking at identify false teachers, how to make sure we're not false teachers, and not just human teachers, looking at the spiritual falsities as well, and just preaching the gospel, things like that. So really, it's a responsibility to identify lies. So divide that into a bunch of things. So how to identify false teachers, followers, and even lies in ourselves. I don't want to say lies, but I mean more like inconsistencies. Inconsistencies in ourselves. Compared to scripture. Scriptural standards. There's always something we can improve. Let's face it. And then spiritual, um, spiritually, spiritual, false, spiritual, false forces. I guess, like such as the enemy. Oh, here, so it seems so good. It seems like a good truth, but then you look deeper and you're going, yeah, it's actually not what the Bible is saying. So that's the second aspect of that. How you can apply this is that we learn to identify this in not just others, but in ourselves and spiritual forces. And then we look at, okay, so how do we do the right thing? How do we do the right thing when it comes to this? So preaching the gospel, truth, shining light on God, and teaching others by teaching, obviously just like this, by living or just by being followers. We lead by example. Not really telling people this is the way, but showing them truth, showing them truth and how it looks like when it is lived. So the strongest, it's the best sermon is not one hidden, but one that is lived. When you can witness and a walking sermon. One is a walking sermon is the way they are. They open doors for old ladies. They watch out for the neighbor. They see some suspicious people and they say, hey, notice these people outside, just be careful. Or, they call the police, or you call the police, or they call police to, not that you're ratting them out, but I mean, they don't know about, say, something going on outside their door. And you notice, so you call the police and say, oh, I noticed something, my neighbor is in trouble there. So I'm just being a good Samaritan. And putting love into practice, not just saying I love God and I love her, but I'm actually doing it. I'm doing what I can. All right, so I think that's it. I didn't really know where I was going with this, but now it does make sense. Um, Talking about the differences, talking about this context and prophecy, and I guess the practical application would be two parts, but we'll see how much I can fit. Maybe in 20 minutes. Those 25, I will have to, at 25, I'll have to divide it and take my time. I feel much better now. It's only day two of this writing session. And I wanted to do it originally. I know on Saturday, Sunday, Monday didn't work out, but it is now Wednesday, aka the fourth day of the week. So I originally wanted to do it. I did start it on the first day of the week, or no, was it last week? Anyway, I did start it earlier than I ever did, and I'm also starting relatively early because I normally will work on this kind of hammer away and burn the midnight oil 3 days before. And to be honest, it's not even 3 days before because normally I would do it um, Wednesday night, which hasn't happened yet, which is technically the fifth day of the week, and Thursday night, which is technically the sixth day of the week, and then Friday night, which is the seventh day of the week. So I would do that, and I'm kind of in advance. I'm a little ahead of schedule, which is great. So at least I know where I'm going with this. I just need to fill in the blanks now. I need to fill in the blanks as to okay, look at the context. You gotta read Masoretic and the Septuagint to see what it's talking about. Is this the right context? Is this the right context? Um, yeah. So the context of the verse, see if it makes sense. What it's saying. At a time that makes sense. That there's a time in the future where we'll hear teachers that are teaching the truth, or are spirit beings in the millennium. They're talking about something else. Context is key. And then number two, prophecy, has it been fulfilled? And if yes, it has been, how? And if no, then how? And how? And we're going to look lastly at the practical application. Scripture means, and okay, it's prophecy and all that, but how can this be applied now into the future? Are we the ones who are going to be instrumental? Is this us fulfilling the prophecy, or is this some kind of lesson we can also glean from these words? They're not only prophetic potentially, but they're instructional. Is this instructional? So I'll say is it instructional? And ironically, I don't know if it's ironic, but I also, inspired to speak about things on the previous stream I did just a while ago, maybe an hour or two ago, where I said it's important, um, the lessons we can learn from something as basic going to the washroom, that we need to be we need to know what to keep, what to retain, and what to eliminate. And it's all the things we're bombarded with and exposed to on a daily basis, physically and spiritually, just in the air, just by the things we see, by the things we consume in the media, the behavior we witness, and attitudes and all that. And then, secondly, I was inspired to look at, okay, what does it mean to be a follower of the Anointed One, Joshua? What does it look like? How do you dress? Something like that. So, those are two potential messages, is just the lessons in elimination. And by elimination, not to be vulgar or disgusting, but there is wisdom just in something so basic as eliminating your bowel and bladder, because it seems like something we take for granted, and definitely is. But there's something instructional that we can learn from the way the body works. It's instructional. There's a wisdom there that we take in. Hopefully, we're eating good food, vegetables, fruits, carbohydrates, not this junk food, processed food. And we can actually absorb things that are good for us and building blocks of life, amino acids and all these proteins, and it improves our health, makes us more wise, makes us more powerful. Um, Feeds us, really feeds the cells. It doesn't feed you if it poisons you. And, and then we eliminate what is not needed. That's the way, we eliminate what is in the food we don't need, which we don't need, or maybe it's something where the process of um, during the process of absorption and just living, just being alive, we filter, whether it's by way of water, where water is used as a vehicle to filter our blood, filter toxins out from the air, things that are going on in our body. What our body is also filtering itself in a way. Toxins that are just there, and we're detoxifying. There's wisdom in that. We have to look at that. So those are lessons there. That could be a message on its own. I normally don't do messages like that where it's just like, here's some lessons to learn from the Olympics or bowel and bladder elimination. And the second one was I just talked about in this stream where I was looking at what does it mean when you are a follower of the Anointed One, where, what does it look like and how can that be important? Just the way we dress and the way we behave, but it's more in the way we dress and how does that relate to the third commandment of taking his name, the name of Yah, turning into nothing, his reputation, putting shame on the name. Or we should do the opposite, bring honor and glory to it, and make people give thanks and glory and say, wow, what a amazing God you serve, what a wonderful law that you keep, what a beautiful life that you lead, and the way you treat people is so beautiful and inspirational. Um, yeah, so there's that, and yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I want to wrap up just by saying, in this walk, in my okay, I'm just gonna talk like a normal person. I'm not gonna say anything like a pastor or anything like that, or a minister, or any churchy kind of language. Basically, God put it in my heart back when I was 17 that a bucket list just came into my mind, of all things, a bucket list. And I thought, okay, what will be on that bucket list? Number one on that top item was read the Bible cover to cover and the English dictionary. I want to read Webster's to know every word, because I believe that not only is language important, but our history of mankind, and the lessons we can learn. It's not just a bunch of stories. It's a manual to life. It is a study of human behavior. It's laws. There's so many things in there. It's beautiful. So that was put in my heart, and it was so exciting to read it for the first time with new eyes. And so when I started to practice it around that time in 2000, the year 2000, it became more real, and my eyes were open to what it was actually saying. It wasn't just a bunch of words on paper and beautiful stories. They were actually telling me things that were wrong about myself. Maybe I'll frame it this way: it's telling me the truth about myself, the truth about my maker, the truth about the world, the truth about the Bible, the truth about a lot of things. But it was little by little. And the thing I want to express is it was so exciting. I never have been on fire for the Bible like that in my life from that moment of the year 2000. 17 years old there, and very, very exciting time in my life. And you know what? Um, the more you learn, the more you are open minded, and the more you are obedient, the more that fire grows and intensifies. But the more you stagnate, and the more you are stubborn, and the more you don't repent, and the more you just feel like you know it all, the more that fire will start to, you know, kind of become less intense. It will start to shrink. It will start to uh, fade. But that's what happens when you're organized religion, where you're only allowed to learn this much and no more. We don't teach that, even though it's in the Bible. We won't teach new moons. We won't teach sabbatical years. We won't teach the jubilees. We won't teach, Hebrew or the Septuagint or the calendar, the true calendar. Or we won't teach you about the Aviv barley. We won't teach you about whatever else is beneficial for you that could be salvational, that could be a fundamental belief. It's just not a tradition. It's not our tradition, so we won't teach it. We won't teach you to dress the way that Yeshua did and to have fringes on your clothes, fringes of blue. No, it's too Jewish or whatever. They just label things that way. But the more you open your mind and you're teachable and you're humble and you refuse those limits and say the spirit will not be constrained by man's opinions and traditions, the more you will grow and that excitement will continue and that fire can be reignited once again and burn even hotter and brighter. And that's what started to happen again to me when I believe it was 2010. It was exactly 10 years after I started attending with my family in the churches of God, where there was an incident and basically United Church of God had a crisis. They call it a crisis, basically a political and organizational um, turmoil within the political structure and the way brethren were being mistreated, well, mishandling and just violations of God's commandments and political posturing and all that. So there was infighting for the longest time, but it did not come to, uh, did not reveal itself fully until that time. It was bubbling under the surface, but it didn't really become a public thing until 2010. And you had the resignation, I would say probably forced resignation or maybe even firings of key people in their administration, in their church government. You had Clyde Kylo, Jim Franks, and Larry Salyer, and then other people started to resign and follow suit. They decided to split into another organizational group called Church of God, a worldwide association now known as CAGWA. And from that point, I continued to go to other churches of God, just Living Church of God International, and other groups. And it was there that I was invited by, I was invited by two ladies in Church of God International. I won't say their names, but two ladies that invited me to a congregation, a messianic congregation. They were the ones that invited me. I had no idea this congregation existed. They invited me to go, and they invited me, and it took me at least, I think, at least 4 months, maybe even 6 months to muster up the discipline because I was used to waking up. I was used to waking up on the Sabbath day, on the Shabbat. I normally would go to bed whatever time, maybe midnight, maybe 11 p.m. I don't know, but I'd wake up at the earliest, maybe 10 or 11, and then get ready by 12, and we would leave 12:30. Services start at 1:30. Takes us about an hour to get there. So yeah, I'd wake up normally around 11. But these people, this group, this Messianic group, they started at like 10, 10:30. So by the time I woke up, their services were practically done. So I really had to muster up discipline, and then I started to go there. And I had this all written down in a timeline, but I'm going to estimate now it's probably around 2015-ish, 15, 16. So that means from the year 2010, 2011-ish. So that was a good 1, 2, 3, 4. So at least 4 to 5 years where I was bouncing back and forth to different congregations all over Church of God, and even attended some uh, Seventh Day Adventist groups because I was looking for a mate. I was looking for a woman, and it didn't work out for me. But I learned a lot of different things about other groups and myself. And so I started going to the Messianic group. And there I was challenged. I was challenged. Um, and even before I started going there, something very interesting happened. Is it was during the Feast of Tabernacles. I was doing the feast or observing it with. I remember we were in a. Where were we again? I just remember studying the sacred calendar. I was looking up the difference between the Hallel 2 calendar and the Sidon Moon calendar. The actual scriptural calendar was a paper by the Henderson, forgot the first name, but the Henderson family. And they submitted it to the Council of Elders in either UCG or CAGWA, I'm not sure which one. And they were suspended from being members until they could look over this document. And I thought that's pretty strict to not even give them a chance to, continue attending just because you're looking into something. Whereas I think you should really allow them to attend. And then when you determine this is false or whatever, then maybe you would suspend them. But that's not scriptural either to suspend somebody like it's some, like a job or whatever. But anyway, yeah, I started reading that because I realized I have a lot of time on my hands at this feast. And it was the feast with Kagwa. Yeah. We were, I believe it was in either California or Florida, but we were in the States. Might even have been Tennessee, but I'm not sure. We were in America, and it was around 2014, 2015. So I know it was at least as early as 2014 where I was reading about the true calendar, and I was reading it not to learn. I was actually reading it to disprove it and say, I'm going to prove that this is a bunch of nonsense. It's not true. It's false. And the way our Father works, Elohim, is when you try to prove him wrong and you really do your best, the truth only shines like you're doing your best to erase it or whatever it is. When you take pure gold and you try to, take your eraser and erase it, what you'll find is the gold shines even brighter, and you realize is not the truth. The truth is permanent. The truth of God, of Elohim, of Yah, is permanent. Nothing if we're being honest, that's number one. We have to be honest about it. We can't, you know, inject our biases in there and people's traditions. We have to look at what the scripture says. So at that time, I did not know about Septuagint. I was still reading the Masoretic, but still, even in the Masoretic, it proved the calendar was not Hillel too. That historically, Hillel came after Jesus Christ had already, you know, after him. So it was from that time I learned about that. I started going to the Messianic congregation, and ironically, not too many Messianics do the sighted moon calendar. This one was being moved to do that as well. And I thought, I'm going to be alone doing the sighted moon calendar and the holy days based on the sighted moon calendar. But they started to have a change of heart. So I wasn't left in the cold. And I'm very, very grateful. I don't know how much more I can express my gratefulness, but I'm so thankful that they did that. But I realized the problem later down the line is that they don't observe the new moon based on the Vive barley, or they use an inconsistent witness that they use traditions, not these scriptural proofs to say it has to be an omer of Aviv. Um, but okay, you know what? I'll let that go. But basically, they're doing that, and they challenged me. Basically, they challenged me. The point is, at this congregation, they challenged me. I was being pushed, or maybe Yah was giving me, Yah Elohim was giving me what he knew I was ready to accept, or what he knew would be challenging to me, that he knew I would really take an honest look at it and say, is this true or is this false? And where else is he going to bring me next, right? So it's going to be a big confessional. I'm not going to stop till I finish this. So yeah, the first time I attended there, they spoke about something that angered me. Yeah. I didn't express it on my face. I didn't express it in words. I kept it inside. They spoke about things that I knew they didn't have it right. Like, for example, they talk about hell, heaven. They talk about, what happens after you die. They'll talk about the millennium prophecy and end time things. And I was just not agreeing with them. I was saying, these guys don't know what they're talking about. In my head, I was saying that. But then I realized, you know what? There's a lot that I don't know that they know. And there's some things that I know that they don't. But the important thing is to make it useful and discard what is not. So I decided, okay, let me continue listening. And if I continue learning, I'll continue going there. So I continued to attend there. And I noticed that not only was their teaching more meaty and something new and open minded, but their fellowship was also more genuine. They weren't just, I hate to say this, but in some congregations you go to, they're very superficial and they don't divulge anything personal. They'll just say, oh, my week was good. That's it. How are you doing? Oh, I'm okay. They don't get into nitty gritty. I'm not saying tell me about your personal life, but at least, you know, a friend opens up a little bit. So in this congregation, the Messianic congregation, people are opening up about their sins. I'm going, whoa, this is too much for me. I'm not used to people opening up that much. And little did I know I would open up too. I would confess my sins and my struggles with addiction to pornography. And I'm doing that right now because, why not? I'm not perfect. And it was only at that point when I started to acknowledge that problem, that demon I've been facing since I was a teenager, and probably even before that, the lust of the eyes, that's the first time that I started making progress with it in a very big way. Not just deleting what I have in my computer, but really fixing my heart about it. I'm not saying I'm perfect now, but I'm still working on it. I'm still improving. And the tide is shifting. It hasn't completely shifted where I'm like, I can be immune from women, but but at least I value women more based on who they are inside of their minds and inside of their hearts. Whereas I'm becoming more repulsed by just women who are flaunting their sexuality and like, oh, look at my body, just to get clicks, just to get money and attention. It's not enough for me to invest my time just because you look good and the words and your behavior is so shallow and just it's not good. It's not giving glory to anybody except yourself, and you're just weaponizing your sexuality. Basically, yeah. So back to the Messianic congregation. So I started attending there, and I still attend there, although on and off because of the situation we're in. And I got reconnected with friends from the Church of God that were kicked out, and by friends I mean Joseph Dumont from Sighted Moon, who I saw there. I thought, well, what's he doing here? I think someone invited him. I might have invited him, but someone did, and he attended. And they didn't want him to speak there. They didn't like his personality or what have you. But anyway, they were led to not let him speak. I think it's a big loss, in my opinion. He has a lot to share, a lot of things we can learn from him. So I got it. I started really getting into Joseph's stuff, and he helped me to learn a lot of new things I didn't know either, and opened my mind even more. I don't agree with every single thing he teaches, but for the most part, we agree on a lot. Like probably more than any other. Uh, how do you say it? More than the other movement, I guess, in this movement of all the denominations, if we call them that, like subdivisions of believers in this way. It's probably the closest to me agreeing with anybody is Sighted Moon. So as much as I disagree with certain teachings, I mean, we have the same goal in mind: is to love our Elohim, love each other, and to seek the truth and to live the truth. But I think, yeah, we disagree with some things. I won't say them right now. Right now, I think people don't know what they are. In particular, Septuagint. I think there's some things we just don't see eye to eye on because I accept the Septuagint, and a lot of people are still on the fence with that for some whatever reason, which is strange because if you don't accept the Septuagint and you take the Masoretic over it, then you're basically saying the Messiah, Yeshua being Messiah, is not important to you because the Masoretic denies his messiahship in a lot of ways and who he really is as being Son of God and God. So, and there's that, and then another thing with the nature of Yeshua and who the Father is. So there, that dynamic there, the nature of Elohim. So there's only two things I probably disagree with. Not probably; those are the only two things I really disagree with them about, and there are other things too, but they're not really scriptural. But those are the two big ones that we disagree with. Besides that, I think we agree on every little thing. Oh, and the third thing is Pentecost, Shavuot. We don't keep the same one just because the Septuagint again differentiates that the first day is not the first day of the week, the Roman first day. It's the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the first holy day. So basically, yeah, I mean, Yah's continued to show me. It's like I'm an animal. I'm not saying he sees me as an animal, but he sees me as this man, this creature on this planet, and he gives me the things I'm ready to. Maybe I'm not ready, but I mean things that he knows I will, you know, pursue in terms of seeking the truth of his scripture and truth of all things. But I mean, of all things on this planet, it really is a scripture, and his way of life is the most important thing. And so I started to see that journey. Really, it started being born, but 99, 2000 is where I really said, let's do this. This is, God said to me in my mind and my heart that, it's time. Look at the Sabbath, start with that. And I was on fire. I wanted to even post on all the Catholic churches. Why are you not keeping the Sabbath? The Sabbath is in the Bible, we're not keeping the right day. You're keeping Sunday. It's the wrong day. I didn't do that, but I don't know how many people would actually investigate that and say, oh, Sabbath is actually the seventh day of the week. So started with that and continued to move to 10 years later with that split. Without that split, I would probably still be in Church of God. I don't know. And then when we started going to different congregations, attending feasts with other groups, I had more time to really study and read into the calendar there. And it was Henderson who, yeah, put in their heart to write that about the calendar issue. And that was on Shining Light blog with James Malm. So he was being used as well to publish that because it wasn't Sighted Moon that brought me to Sighted Moon calendar, ironically. And I knew there was an issue between James Malm and Joseph Dumont. They didn't see eye to eye on things, but whatever. I mean, I don't see things that way. I just look at the scripture and the truth of the matter. And James Malm he looks at the Sighted Moon calendar. He believes in it too. And so yeah, I started going to the Messianic group, and in that group, I was also inspired. Someone was inspired to buy a Septuagint. I met one of my former Church of God people there as well. I won't say him by name, but he told me about the Brenton Septuagint. And so I have two Septuagints, but I bought the Nets, the New English translation of the Septuagint, years before. I looked at the Brentons and really knew there was a big difference between these two texts. I thought, okay, they're just little semantic differences and, little inconsistencies, but nothing, cataclysmically different or fundamentally different that would change the religion altogether. But it was only until I was pointed out by my not former, but my old friend from Church of God who kind of moved away from that. He showed me the Psalm where it says, sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but my ear you've opened in the Masoretic. But then in the Septuagint says, but a body you've prepared me. Huge difference. You're going, what? Whose body is that? And it's told to us in the New Testament, the body is Christ Jesus. He's the one it's talking about. And that was the spark that lit the fuse that led to this channel. And I've been lackadaisical and I've been going through bouts of depression and inconsistent sleeping patterns. I've been awake 7 a.m. now and I'm still awake. I should go to bed. And I got to get back to this channel, but essentially I got to do this message first and be able to do the channel, take care of that afterwards. So like I said, I was on fire for the truth back in 2000, circa 2000. And then I started to get on fire for the truth again, circa 2015, 16. That was what, 16 years later, I'd say 15. I'm going to say 15 years later. I feel like it was around 2015. So about 15 years later, so I was about 30. How old was I? I don't even know. But whatever. I was about 30 something. Actually, I realized how old I was, and it's actually the age Yeshua was when he died. So I was that old when that flame was reignited once again. And now the Septuagint issue, this this path that has been again ignited. I've been reignited. That flame is ignited once, and then twice, and then 3 times, and greater intensities. Is something very special, and we take it for granted. I take it for granted sometimes, especially in light of life's problems, and we forget what a great blessing God has given us just being called at all, and then reigniting the flame and making it more intense, increasing the bonfire intensity, to use a Dark Souls term, multiple times, at least twice now, 2000, 2015-ish, and then recently in 2019, I'm going to say, which is literally 20 years from when I started. So it's interesting to see where I'll be 20 years from now, or from when I started this Septuagint thing. It'll be 2039. Hopefully, I'll have finished covering all the content that I put in my heart, or that has been put into my heart to cover. Again, Genesis to Revelation, including the Apocrypha. And there will be no cost that I have to spend. It's all been provided for me. I don't have to ask or beg for money. Beautiful. Um, and if Yah willing, I start working again in other things to earn a living, I'll have to find a way to continue to do this and not let that work suffer. I don't want it to take a back seat to these pursuits of making a living or raising a family or what have you. I want God to be number one always and everything else to take second place. Not that I'll be neglecting my job or my family, but you put everything in its right order, those things will be taken care of by God Himself. So, yeah, I mean, I cannot spend 8 hours on Septuagint and then, the rest on family and work. It doesn't make sense. But I have to put everything in its right order, in its priority. Doesn't just mean, if I have 10 hours in a day, I'll put 9 into the Septuagint and the rest and neglect it. No, you got to balance it out. But I want to make sure the first thing I do is to do with Yah. And next, let's say it's an hour or two, and then divide it, accordingly in a reasonable way and according to the correct priorities, which is, again, Yah first, family second, and then whatever else next. I guess that would be work. Um, yeah, so basically, why I introduced this whole spiel is because I found there are other new teachers. Well, I won't say new, they're new to me. And they all have specialties in different areas. So, when I look at the sighted moon calendar, the sabbatical years, the jubilees, Joseph Dumont, that's the expert, sightedmoon.com. When I think of the Vive Barley and the signs for the new year and determining the new year and all that, and new moon witnesses and what have you, you look at Rivka Biederman of the Ancient Path New Moon channel there and Facebook group. And then when I look at the Nephilim, the question of the Nephilim and giants and things like that related to Genesis 6 and things that are kind of mysterious, I would say, in terms of that area of giants and Nephilim. I look at Rob Skiba, or Rob Skiba. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway, his stuff is very, very intriguing. I'm not saying it's all true, but it has to be considered. You have to keep an open mind to he might be right about a lot of those things about giants and Nephilim because he seems to be the expert in that area. And then now that I think of just recently, this past week or two, I've been looking at prophecy as it relates to the Middle East. And that expert is a man um, whose name rhymes with valid, if you would spell valid with a W. And last name is something you wear in your foot called the shoe. And second word, or same shoe, and then baseball bat. So shoe and the word bat. I don't want to say his full name because I don't want to get, any kind of don't want to raise some flags there, but basically him. he seems to know what he's talking about the Middle East and prophecy. I'm not saying he's 100% correct, but I got to consider he could be right. He's got some insight into stuff to do with the revelation and pretty much the Middle Eastern prophecy. So I'm looking to buy his books and read his content and to see, is there anything that can be benefited from in terms of, who you're looking at in the end time. Are you looking at Europe? Are you looking at the Middle East? Are you looking at both? Are you looking at North America or South America or Asia? Or what are you looking at? And are we looking at the right places? And is it all spiritual or is it just, directly, if we're saying Egypt, it means Egypt, not a spiritual Egypt. You're talking about specific places. Are they is Yah being specific, or is he being kind of cryptic? And when he says a certain name, he means the spiritual one, or does he mean these people who migrated, but they're the ancestors of that society, or you know bloodline, or whatever name he's using there in prophecy? When he says Tyre, does he mean the descendants of Tyre? Does he actually mean geographic Tyre? So he's got a lot of insight into the prophecy. I'm perceiving that he seems to know something, and he has a perspective that very few people do, especially in the West. So that's all I have to say about that. I'm just very, very excited to the point that, you know, um, normally I would listen to these kinds of messages like spiritual things only once a week on the Shabbat or on holy days. We feel like, oh, there's not enough time to consume worldly things such as music, video games, movies, and TV, and what have you, that we should devote all our time to those worldly entertainment and news and whatever. Whereas, why aren't we devoting regular week time that, is not Shabbat towards these very important topics? Did we figure it all out? Did you learn everything already? Because I feel like there's still a lot we haven't learned. And I'm learning that as I keep an open mind and I'm listening to other people, listen to other Messianic groups and going, yeah, they have some practical advice, some wisdom there. And some things tickle people's curiosity a little more than others. Some people are more leaning towards prophecy and end time things, and other people may gravitate more towards Christian living, or practical things, how to actually do the law, or understanding Hebrew or whatever, or historical things. People like to. Everyone has their own preference, so that's all I have to say about that. I'm just very happy. We're going through challenging times as a civilization, as a planet, as continents, countries, cities, municipalities, as individuals are all going through challenges. And I read an encouraging, simple message someone posted on YouTube saying, don't give up on living. Things are hard, but we'll get through it. Something like that. And they were right. It's just so simple to say that, but it's another thing to read someone else writing it. And it's like they're speaking to you, and those words speak to you, especially when you're struggling through depression and isolation and feeling useless. And the person saying, yeah, things are tough. I get it. You'll get through it though. It's not gonna last forever. Just gotta keep going for another day. Take it a day at a time, and things will get better. But we have to stick with it. Um, we're isolated, but we're not isolated, because we're all isolated together. If that makes sense, we're all in isolation together, unless you're the ones who are finding a way around it. um, yeah. And I watched a video today about this lady dressing up like 1958, and she lives every day like it's 1950s. And she said something that stood out to me. She said, I didn't really feel like I was myself until I dressed this way. Then it's like she unlocked her real self. And I feel the same way when I dress certain ways, whether it's dressing like that, maybe 1950s, or before that, 1930s, 1960s, 70s, or maybe even before that, 18th century Victorian era, because I have some garb that is very much inspired by the Victorian era. And I also have this, which I've been doing lately, where I'm thinking of dressing like people did in ancient times. Because people, when they think ancient times, they automatically think, oh, primitive. These people are backwards or primitive. No, they weren't backwards. And they were not primitive either. They were actually more in tune with what is important in life, which is growing growing your food, relying on the creator to provide your food, being more connected to your community, being more connected to our creator, to being more in tune with celestial events such as the moon, the sun, the stars, being in tune with nature, with creation, and being in tune with each other. So those are really the important things: connection, relationship with Elohim, with Yah, and relationship, connection with our fellow human beings, everyone around us, especially those who are believers. So no, they didn't have it backwards and they are not primitive. They actually had what they needed, and they continued to teach future generations the things that they learned. They passed on their wisdom. Wisdom was a legacy, and it didn't die out. They shared what is beneficial, whereas now we have generations who are not learning anything that is of value in terms of what is really important. Those important wisdoms. For example, you have girls, women who are not being taught how to be mothers in the right way, how to make clothes, how to cook, how to raise kids, how to be feminine, how to respect their man. And conversely, we don't have men who know what it's like to be men anymore, and how that looks like and what it sounds like, and our responsibilities as men to protect women and children and to relate to other men. And same thing with women, how to relate to other women, and how children should relate to elders and authorities, and how they should respect parents and those older than them, and how we should all respect our creator. So, it's it's sad. It's a sad state where we have this Western society where we don't pass on the torch, so to speak, of the wealth of knowledge that has been collected over generations, and that can be lost if we don't record it some way, somehow, in some kind of format, such as a book or audio or video or what have you, so that people can continue to live wisely and efficiently and according to wisdom, according to various wisdoms, whether it's agriculture, spiritual wisdom, technology, things that we need in society. Um, so many things. Like, there's so many avenues where this can go, but basically, I think it's sad that we're not really preparing children with the wisdom that they really need, and that's why I think school and education has placed an imbalanced priority on things that are not really priorities, such as social sciences, and too much on science and math and not enough on morality and actual practicality. When I look back at high school and I realize two of the most important classes that I didn't take, but I really should have, um, seemed like all girls were in this class called home economics, and they're like learning to cook and what have you. I thought, that's stupid. At the time, I thought so, but I realized now that that's actually very useful. And the second one was shop. I think they called it shop, where they guys would normally be the majority of that make up the majority of the class, where they would do a lot of woodwork and creating, being able to make a house. Maybe I don't know, maybe not a house, but at least have some basics in terms of architecture or just making being more hands on. Like they call them Mr. Fix-Its, and kind of being utilitarian, where a man knows his way around tools and and those kinds of things. So now I look back on that. That was very useful. I should have taken that class too, but I wasn't. Stress is an important priority in my life. It was more being pushed towards English, math, science, when, you know, they are important, but I think those are also important. Um, and personally, I was more into art, music, and technology, like computers and all that. Um, but anyhow, I just find it sad that people they are not giving the future generations what they really need in terms of knowledge, wisdom, and practical, living. Whereas there are societies that still do that in the East, and certain families and cultures that, yeah, they do teach their young men and women how to be mothers and fathers and how to take care of their family and how community should work and how we should treat each other and what a good neighbor looks like and what what kind of moral codes we abide by. So I think that's all I have to say about that. That was my journey. That is my journey. I'm still on it, and this is like a time capsule in time, of this day in the year 2021, Roman year 2021, May the 12th, which in the true calendar, I believe it's 5758, something like that, and I believe it's going to be the I think it's going to be the fifth month, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look it up on Sighted Moon, but I'll just type it in right now. It's coming up, I think tonight, the new moon. We have to keep an eye on that. If it's not tonight, then tomorrow night. Or so I'm going to close this up. And thought provoking stream, at least for me. Reflective and very I haven't been talking to anyone, just myself. Just kind of my own voice. But it's nice to be able to express these things, just to vent them out or what. So yeah, today or not today. Yeah, today is the year 5857 since Adam, and it is the third month. We're closing out the third month. It will be the fourth month this coming week, which means that the next feast day is approaching. If this is if you accept this, will be the new moon. Then the next new moon would be um, the following month of June. Would be around June the 10th, around there. For the fifth month, then the sixth month would then be the hold on a sec. Let me just try to get my mind together. Yeah, the fourth month would be now. So we're going to be pretty much, you would subtract a month. So July would be the sixth month, meaning the Feast of Tabernacles, according to the sighted moon and the Aviv barley, would then be around uh, August. It would be around the beginning of August, around the 5th, 12th, somewhere about thereabouts. Meaning it would be well, people would say August is going to be warm, hot, but that's very good weather, I would say, for camping outside. but if you're doing that a month or two later, September, October, you're going to be really cold. So it's interesting how that works out that way. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I'm going to end the stream. It's probably been going for 2, 3 hours now, but I had to get through that because I realized, there's a lot of things we take for granted, and it's important for me to do this because I feel like, as busy as this schedule is of giving a message every other week, it's good because it keeps you sharp and looking forward to something. Otherwise, there's nothing really, no deadlines. Our tendency is to just stagnate and to just be lazy and just, be non fruitful or non productive. So that's all I have to say for this day. I will speak, Yah willing, this evening, and start cracking on more of the content of this message and build up some content, fill out the blanks, put in the meat there, and see if we're going to get a good message. And by Friday, hope so we'll get a lot of stuff. Hopefully, try to do one point tonight, and maybe another point tomorrow, and maybe on Friday, maybe do number 3 point, and then just put it all together and see, is this going to be? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so it's just really not for anyone to watch, but just for me to be productive. I find if I don't do this in this fashion, nothing will get done. I'll just sit here, stare at my keyboard or stare at the screen and not really do anything. I gotta like verbalize it. I'm very auditory. I gotta hear it all and see it all and just put it all together. Um, and one thing I think I've made progress with is I'm a kind of person that I think a lot of people are like this too. But if we know that there's a camera on, such as is right now, we're very conscious of it. We're very self conscious of it and the way we look. So I'm like thinking, how do I look right now? Oh, I gotta fix this. But once the camera turns off and I put end stream, I just it's like the way I am right now. It's like I just kind of just I'm just a lot more loose and just I think people can appreciate someone as genuine. So I think my goal is just to be more genuine. Not that haven't been genuine, but to just be more genuine because I feel like the best things I do and say and all that is when the cameras are off. Ironically, it's like no one's watching you. You just come up with really good stuff because you're not doubting yourself or thinking about what other people think. It just flows more effortlessly. It's like nervousness can stifle creativity and authenticity too. So all right, so that's all I have to say. Yeah, it's been a long stream, but I've enjoyed this time. And I gave you my life story basically. Didn't give you my biography, but I gave you my spiritual biography, I would say. I mean, there was other stuff I missed when I was talking about. I didn't mention how when I was a kid I was reading the Bible, but not the Bible, like a children's Bible, and I would read that and look at the pictures and whatnot, and I knew God was real, but it was very nebulous in my mind. So I would talk to my cousins and say, they'd ask me, how's God real? I said, God is real because he's everywhere. We don't see him, but he's everywhere. But I guess that was the limit as to my understanding of things. Not really taking it that seriously in terms of the way I do now, but just very, you know, elementary, very, very vague and very nebulous. But I felt in my heart, yeah, there is a God. but I was, a little more foolish, maybe a lot more foolish. Kids are like playing games with God. Like, okay, I'm praying right now, God. What do you think I'm thinking right now? What are we thinking right now? I mean, that's what kids do. We're kind of foolish, right? But yeah, that's probably the only part I missed. But everything else is has to do with just foolishness and just trying to discover who I am and where my place is in the world, and just wanting to feel like you belong. And we try to fit in with our peers. That elevates to another level. Once you get to high school, you're saying, "Oh man, really got to fit in. I gotta look cool. I gotta do cool things. I gotta smoke and you do drugs and all this stuff that is morally wrong, but do it just because that's the way the media presents it, or that's the way to become cool or accepted." But I didn't really buy into that as much as other people did. Maybe I was more in the music side of things, and I should have got to dress this way because I listen to this type of music, so I got to dress like the people, the band I like, and maybe it'll make people like me more. But whatever. I mean, you do you, right? And yeah. But life didn't really start, in my opinion, until I found, yeah, and yeah, found me. Everything else in between was a dark period of my life, dark in terms of spirituality and truth, but was light in terms of just being a kid and discovering myself. Um, yeah, life would be better as a kid knowing the truth, but I don't think I would have appreciated it as much as I did the way things went, where your priorities change and you're going, what's actually important in life? Is it this pursuit, or is it, what God thinks and what is in the Bible? Like, is that what's really important, and why is it important? And is there a purpose to my life? And is it in the Bible, the purpose of our lives and the meaning of it all, and why God created us and who God is, and every question that we could possibly think of in terms of existence and purpose and meaning, and why this is why we are here, and why this exists, and why the light exists, why the sky is here, and why the ground is here, and why gravity works, and whatever you can think of. It's all there. It's all there in terms of the ultimate purpose of it all, and yeah, I don't think it takes a certain maturity to really appreciate the truth. I think as a child, if I would have been taught what I know now, you take it for granted way more in terms of that you know nothing else. I'm not saying we have to learn lies, but I'm just saying that um, someone who's been lost and someone who's lived in the dark will be able to appreciate the light a lot more than someone who's just always been in the light. Someone who's been blind all their lives will appreciate sight more than those who are born with sight. And that's how I feel about my journey, is that I was blind for so long until I turned 17 and God started to open my eyes, put in my heart to seek the truth, and been on that journey ever since then of just constantly wanting to seek the truth of all things, not just scriptures, but even about food and health and the world around us. The truth of all things, and the truth hurts. It's never easy to learn that you're wrong, to correct our beliefs and our behavior and our relationships and all that. it's tough because it means you have to sacrifice something. You either sacrifice your ego or you sacrifice your opinions or your concept of existence, or you got to sacrifice friends. You got to sacrifice something because you can't have both truth and lies. You can't do that and live that way and then the right way. You can't live the wrong and the right way at the same time. One has to give. One has to. One has to give way to the other. And living a mixed, people do live part truth and part lie, but ultimately, we're just shortchanging ourselves. Yeah, but it is tough. I'm not gonna pretend it isn't. It's hard to fully give up every little percentage of worldliness or the world we live in, the society we live in, and culture what we're born into, and that's a challenge. It's really tough. It's tough to even conquer for a man. It's hard to conquer our eyes to not give in to what we look at and go, "Whoa, did you see her?" You give it one glance and you're tempted to do a double take. That's where it really gets you. And then for women, I don't know what theirs is, but I guess it's emotions. I don't know how they're tempted by emotions, but you know, they have their own thing there, and I don't know what that trap is, but I guess it's where they invest their time and emotions into. So I mean, we all have to deal with that, whatever our issue is. So for men, it's that. So I guess for women, yeah, it's got to be tough to have to overcome society's uh, demands on them as to what it means to be a woman and what it means to be feminine and what it means to yeah, I fully acknowledge that it's not easy for men to be men and it's not easy for women to be women because yeah, society places very high expectations on both men and women as to you know what it means to be a man and a woman, and not all those things are correct, those ideals. But if we go to scripture and we look at what a woman is and what a man is, I think it's a lot more sensible. And it isn't based on, women should always, be fit or should always be wearing makeup or always looking beautiful or whatever it is. Sometimes a woman just has to be beautiful inside first and then let people really admire and appreciate who she is uh, as a character, as a personality. And then, I mean, it's okay for a woman to be beautiful, obviously, but that shouldn't be their main priority. I think that's what the New Testament stresses is that women should not put that as their number one priority. That their priority is to look a certain way or to present themselves a certain way and to um, try to outdo other women, so to speak. Anyway, it's a whole big topic on its own. Um, I basically just want to say, it's not easy for any of us to be in our positions, whatever your position is. We all have our challenges. I have my demons. I have my struggles, and you have your own. But I sympathize with everybody. I think that's something I have to work on is to be more sympathetic to other people's opinions and their positions because not everyone is where I am, and I am not where you are on whatever stage of life you are on, or whatever your perspective is and understanding on whatever topic you are an expert in or you are more gifted in. So yeah, I have to know my place. We'll have to know our place and try to help each other out. So I want to aim to be more respectful. I remember just listening to my messages last year that the tone I was using was a lot more, not that I'm higher than anyone, but it's just kind of learning. I was a student, but I was also teaching as a student, and I feel like I should continue that, not be like all high and mighty, like, oh yeah, Septuagint makes me the king. No, I'm just learning too, and if you accept it, you accept it. But if you don't, I can't force it on anyone. It really has to be the Father to convince you and to really soften your heart to consider that, yeah, what he's saying could be right. And he's not presenting it in a way that he thinks he's better than anyone, but he's just presenting it matter of factly because that's the only way you can present it. I mean, no, not the only way, but I mean, that's probably the best way is just to be sympathetic and not to be arrogant, obviously. I mean, there is a certain confidence we have in the truth that just we say, this is the truth, there's no other truth. And we preach boldly with confidence, but we don't preach with arrogance. We don't teach people like we know it all. We teach knowing that this doesn't come from us. This is something that um, I've been gifted. It's a gift. So I have to treat it with a lot of respect, a lot of reverence, and to respect others' perspectives because if I don't, I could very well lose them. And we will break the third commandment by showing Elohim, by showing Yah is not who he really is. He's a merciful, understanding Father, and I have to be merciful and understanding to other people in whatever life and perspective and viewpoint they have, and whoever they are, whether they are of a different gender, opinion, political opinion, whatever it is, we're all different. So I got to respect that. I acknowledge that, but I should not compromise on my beliefs and values as well. But I respect others for their differences. So all I ask is that they respect mine as well. And I think if I'm respectful of others, then yeah, I will have earned their respect. So I am going to move forward in that mindset and attitude going forward is to be a lot more respectful of other people's faiths and all that stuff because I'm not going to condemn anyone for difference of faith, just to be and obey what I believe, and if they disagree then they do, but if they don't, I mean, if they do agree, then that's good. Hopefully my conduct and the words I use will have been uh, a a helpful bridge to for them to reach that place or that kind of mindset, or to at least be a little more open to considering what I'm presenting in this channel. So okay, I think it's all. I'm kind of at a loss for words, so that's good. Kind of stumped. I think I've said it all. It's almost 8 a.m. and I plan to wake up, Yah willing, in about 6 hours from now. So that would be 2 p.m. So I'm going to wake up at 2 p.m. Yah willing. Thank you very much for listening. This is not really for anyone to listen to. I guess this is just for me to listen to in the future to evaluate my life and see this is where you were in 2021. So, let's see where you are 5 years from now, or 10 or 20 years from now. And are you still that way, or even better? Hopefully, better. Okay. I'm going to end the stream. And till next time, that will be tomorrow, which technically is this evening because the day starts in the evening. Okay.